All right, the recording has started. We'll give everybody a few more minutes to come on. Is my clock fast or is it already 8 o'clock?
I have 8 o'clock.
Okay.
I have 8 o'clock.
It is 8 o'clock. What's going on?
Good
You're
question.
going to toothbrush ready, Patrick, and
Patrick,
Patrick just lose it downstairs.
is it okay now? I mean, I'm in a meeting. Is he okay?
Amanda down there. Say I should call you.
She's going to call me?
I should call you.
I'm in a meeting.
Okay.
Give me his basket.
Whose toothbrush is this?
I have to go out of the meeting for a minute. I'll be right back.
Okay, just mute it. Thank you.
Sabine, you can unmute yourself.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Rena.
Okay, I guess it is time to call the meeting to order. Tonight is the Meet the Candidates Night, held annually after the nominating meeting. And it is an opportunity for the members of the Briarcliff community to ask questions of the candidates. And we will ask that you submit the questions through the chat feature addressed to Larissa Palmeno, who's co-hosting the meeting, along with my son, Adam Stern, who's helping out on the co-hosting. We're going to try to move through this as rapidly as possible. Seems like we're having a smaller number of participants than usual, but if anybody has a question they want to ask, please use the reactions to raise your hand to signal that there's something you'd like to say. And we will give you an opportunity to jump in as long as it's not in the middle of the Q&A session. So officially, we want to thank you for being here via Zoom. This is unusual for us, and hopefully you'll forgive the errors I will undoubtedly make in running this meeting. We'll ask you to stay on mute until you're called upon when you raise your hand to ask a question or submit a question. Adam, somebody's in the waiting room.
Rachel Layback, I'm going to admit her.
Okay.
Okay.
Fair enough. Okay, so at this point, we will mute everybody and then unmute the candidates and the members of the executive committee And as I indicated, if you have questions for the candidates, please submit them via the chat function addressed to Larissa as the co-host, and she will provide them.
Unmute yourself, Aaron. Aaron, unmute yourself.
Thank you. At this point, I would just like to explain to everybody the procedure we're going to follow for the Q&A section. We're going to offer the candidates 3 minutes each to provide opening statements to explain why they're seeking the nomination for an additional term through the People's Caucus endorsement. That will be the first step in getting them on the ballot for the March 16th elections. We will pose the questions, that many of which have been submitted by community members and others of which have been submitted by the executive committee. We will offer the candidates an opportunity to respond to the question, and any of the candidates who wish to add an additional response, just signal by raising your hand, and we'll give you 2 minutes as well for that. After the questions have been responded to, you will have 3 minutes for closing statements to wrap up the meeting. So again, we'll remind the members of the caucus that we're asking you to submit your questions via chat. I hope we're not missing a lot of participants due to the inauguration process today, although that's certainly a possibility. We think this meeting is just as important, but not everybody seems to agree. I will also ask you to provide email addresses so that we can keep in communications with you. Again, you can submit them to any member of the executive committee via the chat function. And thank you, Margaret. We'll also ask for volunteers to submit through the chat function again, their names and their addresses, to collect signatures on the independent nominating petitions. Normally, this process requires a minimum of 100 signatures, and we always attempt to get a much larger number than that. Last year, we did get 250. This year, given the caucus, we don't want to force people to go door to door, so we will follow the authorization that has been granted by an executive order of Governor Cuomo. I demoted him for a second. We only have to get 70 signatures. We'll try for at least 100 to make sure that there are no challenges to having impermissible signatures or signatures of people who are not residents. That often happens when people collect them at a Super Bowl session at their homes. At this point of the meeting, I'm going to ask for the secretary to read a resolution regarding the uncontested positions to have them appear on the ballot. We're going to shorten the meeting tonight by doing them all at once rather than one at a time. Brian, would you be good enough to read the resolution to cast one vote for the candidates who are running unopposed?
Sure. Unmuted. Okay, resolution to cast ballot for uncontested nominees for village offices. Resolve that the secretary shall be directed to cast one vote for each of the uncontested nominees for 2-year terms. Stephen Vesio, Mayor, Peter Chasky, Trustee, and Ned Midgley, Trustee, and one vote for Howard T. Code, Village Justice, for a 4-year term. Such uncontested nominees shall receive the caucus's endorsement in the village election March 16, 2021. Do I have a motion?
Sorry, I stepped on you, Brian.
That's right.
Repeat that.
Do I have a motion?
Anybody raise their hands or something?
So moved.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
Second.
Thank you. All the ayes, those in favor say aye, please.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
No
There are
nays.
no nays, so the motion is adopted with unanimous acclaim. Brian, would you read the second motion regarding the resolution for the existing members of the People's Caucus for another term?
Resolution to cast ballot for executive committee. Resolved that the secretary shall be directed to cast one vote for nominees Aaron B. Stern, Chair, Larissa Wayne Palmero, Vice Chair, Zachary Giampa, Treasurer, and Brian Crowley, Secretary, to serve as the caucus's executive committee for one-year terms commencing April 1st, 2021. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Sabina. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Justice Code. And at this stage, I would like to ask for all those in favor to say aye or raise their hands.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. All opposed, say nay. Not hearing any opposition, the motion is adopted and approved by unanimous acclaim. At this stage, we will read the resolution for an amendment to the Constitution and bylaws to allow for the appointment of an additional member to the executive committee who will be an alternate member at large. And that is an appointed position that is appointed by the chair. Brian, would you read that resolution, please?
Resolution to amend Constitution. Resolved that the section of the caucus's Constitution Executive Committee shall be amended to read and up to 2 additional members. The bylaws as well, Aaron?
Yeah, it's the same. Go ahead.
Resolution to amend bylaws. Resolved that the section of the resolved that the section of the caucus's bylaws chair shall be amended to read and shall appoint the additional members.
Do we have a motion?
Yes.
Thank you, Larissa. May we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Rachel. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Not seeing or hearing any nays, the motion is carried. The Constitution will be amended and posted on our website for anybody who wishes to download a copy of it. At this stage of the meeting, we're going to open the floor for questions. Larissa, has anybody submitted additional questions to you?
There is just one question so far that I've seen,
All right,
which I sent to you. Did you see it?
not yet. Is that what is the deadline for collecting signatures?
Yes, February 9, right?
Correct. All right. I will start by addressing the first question to the mayor. And after he's had an opportunity to provide an answer, if any of the other candidates wish to respond as well, please just raise your hand and we will recognize you, and you'll also have 2 minutes to respond. The first question was submitted by John O'Leary. Which of Briarcliff's parks will be on this year's agenda for the beautification committee to focus on for their beautification efforts?
Thanks, Aaron. As you know, John chairs the beautification committee. They've been reformed under this board of trustees about a year and a half ago, and they really are looking at everything, not just the parks, but any projects that we have going on that involves plantings. As far as parks that are going to be getting upgrades and maintenance, we really look at all of them, and it's not just the parks. It's all of our recreation facilities, including the trails. But right now, Chilmark is undergoing a long needed cleanup. We're cleaning up all the invasive vines, the overgrowth, taking down some deteriorated trees, and just some general deferred maintenance. We're going to be putting in a new backstop that's code compliant. The one that's there now is pretty dangerous if somebody hits a line drive that's foul. We're installing, converting the green AstroTurf tennis courts into pickleball courts, which will be the first ones that we have in the village. I think that'll prove to be very popular. And we also expanded the basketball court down there because it was pretty tight. So we paved that a little larger as well. All the other parks, I mean, that's really getting right now the attention, but the other parks we look to do sporadic upgrades here and there. Jackson Road, we did some cleanup last year. I think we're going to do some landscaping over there to screen out some of the neighboring views, maybe upgrade the playground equipment over there. It's a little aged. It also needs some new boundaries. And the trails we're going to look to expand upon those as well. And like I said, all the trails we're looking to do a better job maintaining than has been done in the past. So we look for the places that have been the least maintained and need the most work, and we take care of those first and then move on to the others, which is what we've been doing.
Thank you, Mayor Vecchio. Will either of the other trustee candidates like to add to that? I see your hand, Ned, sorry.
I just wanted to second what Steve said. When we ran 2 years ago, one of the things that we did want to focus on was the parks. Clearly, Steve did a nice job explaining, what we've done on some of them, but the Scarborough Park is our signature park on the Hudson. I think all three of us have taken a very, we've really taken a lot of pride in getting that done. And one of the things that I think differentiates that more than all the others is it was a pretty complicated project to get done and get approved. And we had a wonderful village volunteer who helped us get it through all the approval process. And we did all the work, the adding of the stone, the adding of the additional soil to restore what was, once a much larger park. We did it all with village resources. We didn't contract out with someone and pay someone else a profit. We did it all internally. And I think that was a real testament to, to the village and frankly, and I think, the team in front of you, took a lot of pride in getting that done. And, we really followed up on it, and it got done in record time when you think about it, having the approval process we had to go through. So, excuse me, Scarborough Park was I think a big win for us, and I just wanted to reiterate, the rec committee really took ownership of the trails, and also setting up an app that has all of our village trails on it. And who knew that COVID was coming, and all of that was done was prior to COVID. So we didn't respond to COVID with the trails, we did that. And the one other is the Pecanico Lake, Phil in the village, and the DPW did a great job adding a parking area down there where none existed before. So, it's something that we focused on, and none of these were, all important additions to what we're doing. And some of it's just good blocking and tackling. And I have to commend the entire board for doing that over the last 2 years.
Thank you, Trustee Midgley. Deputy Mayor Chatsky, would you like to add anything?
The one other thing I would just highlight, residents can look forward to seeing some of the fruits of these labors. I think this spring, Pocket Park, which was completely renovated by a bunch of volunteers under that beautification committee who did awesome work. The village contributed to redoing the irrigation system, fixing some of the electrical problems in that park. But you'll see, I may be off on the number, 400 bulbs or so were planted. So I would expect this spring you would see a solid 300, 350 of them coming up and really making a dramatic impact on how great that looks. The one other thing I think coming up in the next year, the rec department really has done an awesome job keeping our trails vital to the community. We added trailheads and their signage is much improved. We tried to add some parking where we could do that. Trails have gotten a lot of use this year. I think Ned mentioned the app. It's called the Hiking Project, I believe is what you would Google. You can download that, whether it's for your iPhone or a Google phone, a Droid phone. It allows you to map out routes to get feedback from other users of the trails. You can see which are family friendly, which have the elevations are mapped, the parking situations. So it's really a way to tie everything together. And speaking of which, I think a big goal of this board is to tie some of those trails together. So right now we have a whole bunch of beautiful disjoint trails. The goal is to complete the routes so you can do very long walks through the woods. And it's really, along with Scarborough Park, one of the untapped gems of Briarcliff. And it's what makes our community, I think, extra special among Westchester communities. A lot of nature.
Aaron, if you don't mind, Peter it made me think of something else. Two things. One of which was the restoration of Club Field, fixing the drainage. This is one of the many things that got done this year that had been planned and kept getting pushed off for, not for malicious reasons. It just, never happened. But, fixing that, getting the drainage there and allowing those fields to be used much more frequently, particularly after rain or inclement weather, is just, I think it's just it's a good maintenance issue. And again, done with DPW people. And, Peter alluded to our rec department. Our rec department, frankly, did a phenomenal job this year in keeping the pool open. Think about it. In the middle of the pandemic, they got the pool open. They did as much, and kept it open pretty much for an entire season.
Full season.
Or for an entire season. And, they should be commended for that. And particularly when you look at the neighboring villages and towns couldn't get their acts together and get their pools open.
Thank you very much. And I'll interject at this point to take the opportunity to correct one of the many errors I'm likely to make. I forgot to ask the candidates for their opening statements. So we will interject the question and answer portion and go back to the beginning, starting with Mayor Vesio, followed by Deputy Mayor Chatsky, then Trustee Ned Midgley, and then Justice Howard Coe. So, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I'll keep it brief. I spoke about a lot at the last meeting. There's just a lot more that we want to do and get done. As you've already heard, we've been really productive over the last couple of years, even through the pandemic. We've done things a very smart way, which is what we said we were going to do. Using in-house forces, we found ways to save money. And by saving money on these projects, we're able to get a lot more projects done. And we also take a lot of pride in it. You'll see all of us down there looking at the work, providing feedback in real time, which helps get things done a lot better. We really work on a collaborative team effort on everything we do. And I'm very proud of that with our Board of Trustees. It's incredible, the amount of stuff we've gotten done. And we try to also be very open and transparent to the residents. If we get emails, we try to respond to them. We try to address concerns. Sometimes we can't. It's just not in the village's position to help them in some cases. But we really do try to help everybody. And I'm very proud of the board. I'm proud of all the volunteers that we have in the village on the planning board, the volunteer ambulance and fire, the zoning board, the Board of Trustees. Volunteers make this community really special. And it's something that I think speaks volumes to our residents. It's been a real experience the last couple of years for me personally, being your mayor, and it's definitely changed me as a person. And I'm very honored to have the nomination of the People's Caucus once again. It's a humbling experience, and it's also a huge responsibility. I'm happy to be working on some of these larger issues that have kind of been put to the side for one reason or another, whether it's cost or difficulty level. I don't mind tackling them. I don't mind making some progress on it. I understand that some of these projects take a long time, and that's, one of the main reasons why I want to run for another term is to make more progress on some of these bigger projects like Route 9A and the Tuttle Roads and the downtown streetscape, things that are going to be here long after all of us are no longer around. So it's just really rewarding, and I'm very happy to be volunteering on behalf of the village. And I really appreciate all the resident support and all of your support. So thank you for that. And again, thank you for all you do, keeping the People's Caucus nonpartisan. That's an incredible part and really important part of what makes Briarcliff Briarcliff. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Mayor Vecchio. Deputy Mayor Chatsky, would you give your opening, please?
Sure. I am, as most of you know, I guess, Peter Chatsky. I have lived in Briarcliff for 27 years now. 3 out of my 4 children went to Briarcliff schools. I have been very involved in the community for quite some time. I served 15 years ago as mayor. I took a bit of a rest. I came back in part for the opportunity to work hand in hand with Steve, which has been an unbelievably great experience. I think working with Steve, working with Ned, working with Sabina and Kevin. We are, having been served on several different boards in my life, I can tell this one is an awesome experience of very teamwork focused players. And I think it's showing because we're getting so much done. We don't agree on everything, but in the end, we work out our differences and come up, I think, with solutions that are awesome for the entire village, which is really what you want out of a board. You want people that are willing to work close together to do the difficult work of striking a balance and coming up with a solution that works for everyone. My background is I have a degree in psychology and creative writing from Tufts University. I went on to get an MBA in finance from Columbia. I started a software company that I've been CEO for more than 35 years now. I also head up a venture capital firm. I'm feeling very old. I'm not sure how Steve has all this energy, but he inspires us to forego our naps and also work really hard, which I appreciate. I've really enjoyed watching Steve change as a person.
Please mute yourself, everybody.
Me too? Okay.
No, not you. Except Peter.
Little People's Caucus joke there. I'm really enjoying the work that we're doing. I'm enjoying all the progress we're making. I have really, as a board member, we each have specific responsibilities. Mine have been focused on the legal end of running the village, as well as the communications and keeping residents informed and generally answering or doing the first draft of the answers to the many questions that come our way. And I help out a bit with the manner of speaking, although that's really village staff that does most of that. One of the phenomenal advantages of being involved in the board is you get to work very closely with the village staff, which is an incredibly dedicated group of people. And it's amazing how focused they are on just serving the residents of this village. We as a board have brought way more work in-house, relying more on staff rather than outside consultants and third parties. And I think in every single case, they have stepped up to the task, whether that is reworking the exterior of the library, which we did in-house, the drainage at Club Field, which we did in-house, the restoration of Scarborough Park in-house, all the work on Pocket Park in-house, everything that we can do with the skill set we have, replacing the lamp heads in the central business district in-house. It's been a terrific experience, and I'm glad I've gotten to know those people. My board members have gotten very close with, and I think I've gotten to know residents better through this job. So I appreciate all that opportunity, and I appreciate the People's Caucus bringing all this together, especially in times of COVID. It's a big challenge, and you guys have done a very good job keeping this going. So thank you for that.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Chatsky. And at this stage, I'd like to ask Trustee Midgley to give his opening comments.
Well, thank you. First, first, I'd like to thank the village for electing me 2 years ago. When Steve and Peter and I got together and decided to run as a Troika, it was interesting times, and frankly, the three of us were both happy. We're all happy and surprised that we all won and got to move the village in a new direction. I'm a 23-year resident of Briarcliff. Both my children were educated in the Austin School District. And by way of background, I'll throw out my resume with Peter's as well. I've got a BA from Middlebury College. I have a master's in science and accounting from NYU. and I have an MBA from Harvard University. I've spent the last 25 years in commercial real estate, which I think is a skill set that has been particularly useful over the last 2 years with us as we have been dealing with the issue of the B zones, now the CT zones. So we've gone through a moratorium on development and on those properties in the village. We've now converted everything to a CT zone, which is to promote more commercial development in the village to support our tax base. And I think, frankly, that was a very long road to hoe. And I think we did it as quickly as we could. And I think we were all pretty proud of the results. Looking forward, you've heard of, a recitation of some of the important things that we've gotten done and we're able to do in-house. And I wanted to echo something that Peter said, which is, simply the more stuff we can do in-house we don't have to pay a profit to someone else to get them to do it or an inflated price, the more things that we can do. And I think, the husbanding of the village resources that we've been able to do has allowed a lot of these things to move forward. There's so many things that, over the last 2 years that are unfinished that would be really nice to finish. Over the next several years, from the streetscape to Tuttle Road and really the whole drainage basin going down to Law Pond. Tuttle Road is just a piece of that. Eventually that, everything, or not everything from Tuttle Road, because we came up with a creative opportunity to drain in 2 directions on the top of Tuttle Road. But Tuttle will now drain to two different directions, one down to Law Pond, and that whole drainage, which has been problematic for so many years, now has a path to get fixed. Trails, Scarborough Park, there are just so many things that we've done, and I think there are a lot more things that we can do in the future. And frankly, I enjoy being part of this team, and my hope is that we'll have another 2 years together and accomplish at least as much as we have in the first term. So thank you, and look forward to receiving your vote.
Thank you very much, Trustee Midgley. At this stage, we'd like to ask Justice Code for his opening statement.
Thank you. As you know, my name is Howard Code. I'm seeking election as your village justice for a 3rd term. A few facts about me and a brief discussion of my role in the court. As you know, from 2001 to 2010, I was what is now referred to as the associate village justice. And since 2013, I've been your elected village justice. I spent the last 40 years as a civil trial lawyer, trying jury cases in both federal and state courts from Albany to Riverhead. For the last 15 years, I've also been an adjunct professor at Marymount Manhattan College, teaching history and government, among other things, at their 71st Street campus in Manhattan, as well as to inmates in their college program to Bedford Hills Women's Correctional Facility up the road. I've proudly served as a volunteer firefighter for the last 30 years, rising to captain of the Hook and Ladder Company twice. And I've also served as president of the Hook and Ladder, as well as a member of the governing fire council. In addition, I volunteered for 25 years to work with the high school students in our high school as the attorney advisor on their high school mock trial team. In the 90s for a year, I was also president of the Ossining Bar Association for a year. My wife, Susan, is a local real estate broker. I am also known in town as Susan Code's husband. In case you ever hear somebody say that, they're talking about me. And we have called Briarcliff Manor home since 1989. We've raised our 2 children here, both of whom graduated from Briarcliff High School. And during the last 31 years, Susan and I have tried to give back to the village in any way we can. About the court, I was zooming in on a county magistrates association meeting a few months ago, and one of the judges said, being a local magistrate is kind of like being part of a monastic order. You're really not allowed to say much, and a lot of people really don't know what goes on, perhaps. But I'll try to flesh out what we do a little bit here. The village court consists of a village justice elected for a 4-year term, as well as an associate justice appointed yearly by the mayor, a position that is currently ably filled by Judge Stuart Halper. We also have a court clerk and an assistant court clerk. The court works every Wednesday. The court's jurisdiction is quite broad, consisting of both civil matters with a monetary jurisdiction of up to $3,000 and a criminal jurisdiction consisting of misdemeanors and some felonies, believe it or not. In addition to the criminal calendar, the court handles vehicle and traffic matters, small claims, village ordinances, village ordinance violations rather, building department matters, and landlord-tenant matters. We also must respond 24/7 to off-hour arraignments involving criminal arrests, as well as family court matters that generally require the issuance of a temporary order of protection. Recently, and one of the reasons that I think I would like to run for a 3rd term is that the New York State Legislature has recently enacted far-reaching changes in the areas of discovery in criminal matters, bail reform, and the handling of youthful offenders in the criminal court system. These are all recent changes. I won't go into detail here because I only have 3 minutes, but I will simply state that the workload of the court has changed a lot recently, and we're all mastering new ways of conducting the court's business. Add to that, having to learn new technologies and how to conduct the court's business in COVID times remotely in many instances. And 2020 was the most interesting and challenging year, I gotta say. The good news is that we have adapted to the changing legal and physical circumstances, and the court continues to successfully perform its function as the 3rd branch of village government. I thank the caucus for once again nominating me, and I congratulate all my fellow nominees for the amazing amount of time they put in helping this village move down the road, and thank you very much. And I look forward to being reelected for another term. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Justice Code. I'm going to inject one thing here regarding the People's Caucus. We really have functioned as a nonpartisan nominating body. It's emphasized by the candidates that are before you. Peter Chatsky was nominated for a role as trustee by the current mayor's father, the former mayor, William Vesio, somebody who defeated him for mayor in 2005, if memory serves me correctly. And this year, he was nominated for another term by a former trustee, Brian Zerman, who he defeated in the last election. So it's really demonstrating that this nonpartisan nominating process does work. And I hope everybody understands it. And if they have any interest in running for office in future years, they'll stay in contact with us, and we'll do what we can to help them figure out the best way to accomplish it. So thank you for that. Now we'll get back to the questions. This next question will be addressed first to Deputy Mayor Chatsky. With the updated regulations that exist in the newly established CT zones, has the board made any determinations as to the type of development and/or businesses that they would like to see come into those areas? And if so, what are the reasons for that?
When we came into office, these 5 then B zone properties were pretty much allowed only as office space and lab space, research facilities. The market for that was drying up. Those properties had sat either vacant or underutilized for decades, I would say. And we thought it was vital to maintain a commercial base in this village. Briarcliff has only 6% of his land zoned for commercial use. So the easy solution would have been turn that over to residential use. We would have greatly increased the number of students in schools. We would have greatly increased the population of this village by as much as 20%, I believe was our estimate. That would have draconian impacts on village services, on volunteers who provide fire service and emergency service to our village, the police department, the water supply, our roads, traffic, train station parking. It was not a good idea, obviously, to pursue residential use. Instead, what our board tried to do was make it as aggressively marketable as possible to increase alternate commercial uses for those properties. We added, I believe, 13 additional uses so that there are 15 commercial possible uses for those properties now. And they, I'm going to forget all the new uses. I'm sorry. They include data centers, medical facilities, again, suburban office space, but multi-tenant office buildings, which are much more popular today than single tenant facilities, biotech and engineering type uses, which are all the rage all over Westchester these days. Medical research, bioresearch, those kinds of facilities. We're hoping that each of the 5 properties can be rejuvenated. At the same time, we were sensitive that commercial use nearby residential use zones is always potentially problematic. So what we did is we also bolstered the special use permit process, which would be required for any use in any of those properties. And now it's a mandatory process of submitting things like traffic studies, impacts on schools, impacts on village services, showing that potential tax revenue will be beneficial to the village. We put in a lot of measures to make sure that what does come in is going to serve the entire community, not just the owners of those properties. I think that's a big change. I think assuming this works the way we're hoping it works, this should benefit all residents of the village for decades to come by providing commercial tax base that is going to, of course, augment the budget that all of us pay through our property taxes. So we also did a very innovative thing where we're offering tax incentives to attract commercial use within the village. And this applies not only to the B zones, but also to the central business district. We are working out a plan, or we worked out a plan where major investments and improvements to properties, rather than being hit with a major tax increase in your first year of development, it gets now spread out over a 10-year horizon. And by phasing in the ultimate tax impact, developers can basically get the benefit of an up and running business and start receiving income themselves before they're having to pay to local schools and the village and the town their share of taxes. So we hope that will be an innovative approach and that it'll make a lot of sense for people to take a second look at some of these properties, which are really, you know, tons of potential for the right kind of business. We're hoping we can attract those.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Chatsky. Trustee Midgley, as a commercial real estate broker, do you have something you'd like to add to that?
Well, one of the things I'd like to add has to do with, the east-west divide in Briarcliff. I'm in the Ossining School District, and these B zone properties, now CT zones, would have a disproportionate impact on the Ossining schools. 4 of the 5 properties sit in the Ossining School District. The Ossining School District is clearly, at the top of its enrollment in terms of number of students there, and based on the facilities that they have. And if these properties were to go residential and you were to add hundreds of families, and I know some of them have, there's been some discussion about age restricted and all of that, but let's just assume that there were children there. It would really be detrimental to the Ossining School District, which is approximately a third of the area of Briarcliff. So it's it's sort of disconcerting sometimes to have 2 school districts in the village, but it's important that I think for those students that go to the Ossining schools, if these all went residential, it would have been very problematic. And just one other thing, despite everyone's distaste about the pandemic, the pandemic has actually changed the real estate dynamic. We're seeing companies moving out of Manhattan, people who don't want to commute anymore. And these are not necessarily the big tenancies yet. So you have smaller tenancies that, and because we now have the ability to have multi-tenant buildings, some of these smaller tenants may move into it. And, we all know about, Regeneron to our south, that, they're not less, their property on Route 9 down by Phelps Hospital, is just over the border from our village, and they're expanding, and, we'd love to welcome them. That's my little pitch to see if we can get them. Hopefully they're listening in, Aaron. You have that draw. But all the focus on life sciences right now, we're sort of in a renaissance of that. And I think, in a little bit of serendipity, which we've relied on, both with the hiking trails as well as, maybe we're anticipating a trend that's coming, and, we did the hard work to get us here, to allow us to get these additional uses here. Hopefully it'll attract someone.
Thank you very much. I hope you're correct with that assumption, and I'm happy to make a call to the chairman to see if we can induce him to do so. Mayor Vessia, would you like to add anything to that?
Sure, just a couple quick things to add on. I know Ned and Peter covered most of it, but it is really important that you have a good, strong commercial tax base. If you have 100% residential, you're going to pay more in taxes, the residents will, than if you have commercial tax base. You need as much as possible, and you want it spread out between multiple commercial properties. You don't want to have it all on one parcel, like in Buchanan, where Indian Point went out. They were talking about a 40% tax increase. I understand they're going to get some relief from the government, but short of that, you would have seen a huge residential tax increase, which we obviously are trying to avoid. It's really important to have a good mix. As far as any sort of residential, we have to be very careful about any residential that gets built in our village anywhere, that it does pay its fair share of taxes. I know that condominiums have been proposed on some of these commercial properties, which would only pay 60%, 60, of the assessed value. Single family homes are paying 100%. My feeling is, if we're going to develop any future housing in this village, which I think we do need to, because we have a lot of single family and we need other types of housing, they should be probably fee simple rather than condominium and pay their fair share of taxes. Some of the other changes that we made into the CT zone are early notification to residents. So previously, there would not be resident notification on any of these, on a zoning map or zoning text amendment, until it was already referred to the planning board by the Board of Trustees. Now the new regulations in the CT zone call for public notification before any formal presentation is made to the Board of Trustees. So the residents are now brought into the process, step one, which is good for the residents and for the Board of Trustees, because we can get early input. And it's also good for the developer. If they're coming in with something that the residents of Briarcliff are not in favor of, I'd rather they hear that very early than after they've already been referred to the planning board and spent money on plans and consultants. We do have to be careful that the businesses that come to Briarcliff are in harmony with the surrounding neighbors, that it doesn't cause any impacts on quality of life. I think we did a very good job with our consultant, Pat Cleary, working on our special use permits to really try to mitigate any impacts and require a lot more reports and information that previously never had. Something else that we put in, which applies to all special use permits in our village, is previously you could actually be behind in your taxes and present to the Board of Trustees asking for something to your property, and we'd have to process that application. Now, under the current laws, if you are behind in your taxes or you're behind in your water bills, you owe the village money, and you are looking for a special use permit or a zoning map amendment or a zoning text amendment, you got to pay your bills first. And I think that's very important, and I think it's fair. I think it's very fair. So a lot of really good changes in the CT zone. It was probably about 100 pages of code, 13 sections, a ton of work. It was a very heavy lift, and I'm proud of the work we did, and I'm looking forward to seeing the fruits of our labor as soon as we start getting some commercial businesses in here. But the bottom line is Briarcliff is open for business. So I commend the work of the board. It was a big task.
Thank you, Mayor Vesio. And I read most of those lines related to the CT regulations. And I completely missed the one you just mentioned. Thank you very much for that. That's a very wise insertion. Going to interrupt the questioning now to direct one to Justice Code. So we're trying to keep it non-political and non-village business, but keep it to the courts. As a local justice, you are frequently presented with a wide variety of legal issues that you must adjudicate. How do you prepare yourself to handle matters that involve areas of the law that may be unfamiliar to you?
It's a great question. And when I made my opening statement, I pointed out that I spent 40 years as a civil trial lawyer. All right. Although I took criminal law in law school, as everyone does, in criminal procedure, really, but when I started in 2013, I had to re-educate myself, not on esoteric parts of the criminal law, but go back to basics. And I think one of my strengths is that I'm willing to admit when I don't know something. And one of the good things about being the judge is that you're in charge and you can say, stop, I need to, I'm taking a recess, or we'll discuss it at the next court date. But the good news is that to answer your question, how do I do it? I take the time. I mean, there's no magic formula here. It's like everything else. If you want to be good at it, you got to work hard, And if I see something coming at me that I'm not familiar with, rather than just try to fake it, I will do what I have to do to give myself time to educate myself. The civil calendar is my bread and butter. So I really, to be honest with you, have very little problem with that, and I enjoy small claims court trials and things like that. But so the challenge to me is in the criminal range, and I do what I can to learn what I have to learn. And the other good news is that in the last 16 or 18 months or so, an awful lot of the local judges have ended up in the same position as me, because the legislature just rewrote the book pretty much on discovery, which is what goes on in criminal court, and bail. These are all new rules now. So I'm on this. They did me a favor that they put me on the same level, everyone else on the same level as me. And the whole idea of how to handle youthful offenders, what we used to call, JDs. Now they have YOs, JOs, and there are ways that we've all had to learn how to work with those new rules. And in addition, I probably should have mentioned this, but every judge has to take 12 hours of continuing legal education. So we sit through training of just about if you do this for I've been doing this now since 2001, basically, taking 12 hours a year, and they cover just about everything that could come up. And some of the stuff is just things you would never think of. Some of it's very basic. So between the village courts, the state court system, and my taking the time to do it on my own, I think there's been a lot of opportunity for me to learn, and I've tried to take advantage of that as much as I can.
Thank you, Justice Code. And I assume by JD, you weren't referring to the doctorate of law that you have to obtain to.
No. Yeah, we're all JDs. No, that juvenile delinquent. Remember, that's an old 1950s Hollywood term.
Yeah.
Fun fact, only 1/3 of town and village judges in New York State have JDs. There's no requirement that you be a lawyer to be a village or town judge. In fact, if you're not, and it's very, the reason you got a minute? The reason it's common is that an awful lot of these villages in town upstate, there are 3 lawyers in town, and none of them want to be the judge, but there's a village court or a town court by law, so somebody has to agree to do it. And those people have to take every year they have to take an entire week of training up in Potsdam, law 101 pretty much. Anyways.
Well, now that you've informed me about that, maybe I'll run against you the next time you're up for re-election.
Oh, no, you can't do it.
Oh, I thought you said it was not required. Okay, enough of my attempts at humor. We'll go back to questioning of the candidates for mayor and for trustee. What, if anything, is going on with the former Pace University property? Has their tax exemption been permanently removed? And what is going on with the property itself?
I'll handle this one if you want. First of all, the quick answer to this is just so all residents know, Pace University had been running under a special use permit. That property is actually zoned residential, but they came in quite some time ago and applied for a special use permit, was granted one. Those special use permits expire after, I believe, 12 months of inactivity. It is long expired. The village has taken steps to notify them that they are no longer a valid special use permit. Any transfer of that property would mean all new application process for a special use permit if there were to be a non-residential use there. So they also owe quite a bit in back taxes to both the village, the town, schools, I believe, as well. So without going into details, since this is a pending legal matter, I will tell you that the village is taking all steps to recover money that is owed to us. As Steve mentioned, nothing can be done on that property. No application can be submitted until all back taxes are paid by any potential new use that would require special use consideration for that property. So this board has done quite a bit to make sure that the village will be made whole one way or another. It's an ongoing process, and we hope that we can get some solid use out of that property in the future. There is a lot of remediation that has to take place for anybody who wants to come in and reuse. Many of those buildings would require quite a bit of updates to make them compliant with current building code. So it's going to be a big project for anyone who wants to come in and take over that facility. And we're going to watch it and see what happens. And I think we've already put many things in place that are going to make whatever comes in there more compatible and more harmonious with surrounding neighbors.
As a brief follow-up to that, I thought I understood you to say that they are back on the tax rolls and owe money. Is that correct, that the town of Ossining has assisted in that process? And have they filed a certiorari proceeding in the courts?
I don't believe they have, actually.
Okay.
No.
Thank you. Anybody else want to add anything on that?
Sure. There was a lot of complaints about property maintenance and violations on that property. We put Dave Turiano on him and wrote him up for a bunch of stuff. I'm sure anybody who lives in that area knows that the property was in bad shape. They had water leaks. We wrote him a lot of violations, got him into court, and I'm pleased to report that as of about a month ago, there's no more violations on the property. So they did do their part that they had to do, clearing the grass, fixing the leaks, getting the buildings into at least a safe condition, and the property is free of violations. There has been some filming that's been done up there. We have been issuing those permits to them. And something else that this board did was change our film code. We increased some of the fees. So we are seeing an additional revenue stream coming out of our filming in the village, which happens most frequently at Sleepy Hollow Country Club, but also a little bit of Pace and a few other spots around the village. So the property is at least violation free, which I think is a very important first step. And it is back on the tax rolls. The village pushed the town assessor once the use was transferred, special use permit expired, to take that and put it back on the tax rolls, which they did do. I think they may be trying to argue it, but at the same time, the taxes are accruing. So
I just want to chime in. They are shooting a movie as we're speaking at Pace.
Those film permits, which is a new law we implemented just a year and a half ago, has already generated tens of thousands of dollars in revenue for the village. So it's been an excellent law, as well as the property maintenance law, which we completely rewrote under this board. So Pace is an example of two laws that we changed completely as a board that have been very progressive and very beneficial to the village.
I'd like to jump in and commend the board, but in particular Peter, who's really taken the lead on rewriting a lot of the village code, updating it probably for the first time in 40 or 50 years, and really getting it to simpler language, more direct language, and addressing the issues that we're actually facing as a village. And these two are just, that Peter just mentioned, were just really good examples of, getting a fair fee into place that allows the village, to work alongside, filming companies and the property maintenance is another. It's not really a money maker, but it certainly gives teeth to some of the some of the issues that arise sometimes in terms of keeping properties maintained.
Not
Just
a
one-
big money maker, but it's a free money maker.
Yeah.
I'd just like to add one more thing. It's all about non-tax revenue. That's the key term, non-tax revenue. It's money that doesn't come from residents' pockets. And that's what we're trying to maximize, this non-tax revenue. We've done that in a few different ways. And we have other ways that we're going to be continuing to do it. But also, we don't do this in a vacuum. So we wouldn't want to just say, charge $10,000 a day for a permit fee for filming so we can get all this money, because then everybody may stop filming in Briarcliff. And we don't want that either. So what we did with this law and also with our fireworks law is we actually sat down with the places that are involved with it. We went and met with Sleepy Hollow Country Club. We spoke with representatives from Trump National to understand how this would impact their operation. And we took that into consideration when we made the changes.
Thank you very much. Another brief question from a participant. What is the current size and population of the village of Briarcliff, if anyone knows?
5.5 square miles,
And population?
just over 8,000.
Thank you very much. That was an easy question for you. All right, we're going to switch to Justice Code again with a second question. Many of the matters that come before you involve pro se litigants, those who are not attorneys. How do you deal with parties that are unfamiliar with the law and court procedures?
Yes. Well, the main tool that we all have is we offer the appointment of what's called an 18B attorney. That is an attorney that, well, first of all, as part of their rights, when they're read their rights in court, they are advised that they have a right to remain silent. They also have a right to an attorney. And if they can't afford an attorney, one will be provided free of cost by the state or the county. And most people do avail themselves of that. On the vehicle and traffic tickets, things like that. Occasionally you'll get somebody who says, look, let me just go to Town of Mount Pleasant and pay off those tickets and I'll come back. And that's fine. If they want to do that, I give them a very clear opportunity to retain counsel. If occasionally somebody chooses not to do that. On the criminal side, that's a completely different thing. As you can imagine, there are Bill of Rights issues and all in that, and I strongly recommend counsel. I'm not sure I really want to say more than that.
Okay.
I will occasionally see somebody, as I said, in the vehicle and traffic side, the civil side, where they want to represent themselves, and if they insist, that's fine. I don't mind. We have every calendar call. There's 1 or 2 or 3 people who are representing themselves, and they're very good at it. They know how to resolve their ticket problems and get their suspension lifted in the Department of Motor Vehicles, and we let them do that. That's virtually a non-existent situation on the criminal side.
Now, you mentioned that you allow them to go to the Town of Mount Pleasant to pay their outstanding tickets. I assume the same is allowed with the village of Briarcliff?
Oh, you mean if yeah, of course, yeah.
All right, now questions again for the mayor and candidates. Have the bills that were introduced in the State Assembly and the Senate to study proposed improvements of the Route 9A corridor in the towns of Ossining and Mount Pleasant made it to the legislative agenda or potentially to the governor's program bills?
I'll take this one. That's kind of been my my project that I've been trying to push along with the help of the trustees and most importantly the residents. So, in order for a bill to become a law, it has to be passed in New York State by the Senate and the Assembly in the same legislative session. So last year we got the Senate, but not the Assembly because it just didn't get proposed. Now this year, they just went into session a few weeks ago. I'll be making phone calls to our representatives, Elijah Melnick in the Senate and Assemblywoman Sandy Galiff, to get same as legislation, which means they just basically copy the same text as last year, and they both use the same bill to pass it in each one of their respective branches. After that, it then has to go through the process and eventually end up at the governor's desk. I'm going to be asking for resident support. The emails that we got last time when we made a big push about a year and a half ago really made a big difference. And we're going to need that again. Our voices can speak, but we need everybody else to raise ours up and hear yours. That's only part of the story, this legislation. It mandates they do a study and they do it within a year, but it doesn't provide any money. So the DOT is just going to say, we don't have money. They'll probably wait a year to tell us that too. But I don't want that to happen. So we met with Senator Kennedy out of the 62nd district, I believe, in Buffalo, who chairs the Transportation Committee, along with now Senator Elijah Melnick, down at Route 9A. And we've asked them to put money into the budget for the study. And I'm going to be looking for the residents to help us remind them that we asked them that of them, and they indicated that they'd be willing to do it. So it's two prongs really for this year. We need to get the legislation passed in the New York State Senate and Assembly, and then through the whole process, eventually with the governor signing it. And we need to get money into the April budget for New York State DOT to fund the plan. If we can do those things, then the next step is pushing for them to start the study, and then past that, we get on to design and construction. This is a long haul. I'll be honest. This is like a 5-year to 10-year venture. We're in 2 years right now, but we've been waiting for this roadway to be improved since 1932. The last time they did anything major was 1972 when they put the guardrail in, and that was only because Briarcliff residents shut the highway down because it was 12 fatalities in 6 months. People had enough. I think we're at a point now where there's 120 accidents a year. Our volunteers are out there. Our limited police is out there. It's just ridiculous that there's all these heavy trucks in this volume underneath bridges that they don't fit underneath. It's unfathomable to me that we're 25 miles from New York City and we're living with a 1932 parkway that they're letting trucks on that don't fit. Anybody who sees that knows there's a problem. So that's where we're at with it. And while we did get it passed in one of the branches, we didn't get it through both. So this year, that's what we need to do.
Thank you, Mayor Vessia. Would you like to add anything to that, Deputy Mayor Chansky?
I'm going to add 2 things to that. First of all, one of the greatest challenges, I think, when you're involved in local government, especially in a smaller community, is that there are just some things that you rely on bigger governments, on either state government, county government, state government, or federal government to help you out with. And, the most you can do here is be a very squeaky wheel. I think that Steve especially has really been pushing this, and we've done a very good job. We met with, as you mentioned, both Elijah Melnick and Tim Kennedy, got them to actually come on site to actually see the problem, which really helped spur this. I think the 2 things that helped were getting them here on site and the fact that it was an election year. Those were 2 big pushes to get their attention. But we do have a track record here, this board. We got the famous Pleasantville Road railings painted. I think they had sat for how long? 30 years, maybe. As long as I have lived in Briarcliff, they've needed to be painted. They were lead paint. It was an abatement problem. It was an issue because it's over Route 100. Our DPW guys couldn't do it themselves because they would face severe fines and torture by the state. So we did just continue to call again, and finally got some attention. They're beautiful now. I think actually of all the things we didn't do but got credit for may have been those railings. I think residents love seeing that change. So we're going to keep pressure on it. The other big thing that'll really help is that there has been a lot of push to reuse some of the space that's on 9A south of us. So Elmsford, I know that Amazon was speaking to them about putting in a local, smaller warehouse facility. Amazon is looking at spreading out their warehousing in smaller communities to improve delivery times. I think when we have a big corporate client like Amazon in the area, that is also going to help the push when their own trucks have to be going up and down 9A. I'm guessing that Jeff Bezos is probably going to have a little more influence with the New York legislature than Steve and I have, even though Steve's been doing pretty well. But I thank residents for their patience, and trust me, we are pushing this as much as we can. And the more we get momentum by getting residents behind us, the more likely this will get done. So we're optimistic.
Aaron, I just wanted to add one thing. I'm really glad you brought up the question. And I just wanted to highlight one thing that Steve said. We really, and also Peter, we really are going to need residents' help. You know, we can't just send 15 emails to the state legislature and expect it to get done. You know, we need hundreds of people to just send in an email, get it done, and you know, we can make those emails available. They're very simple, you know, click and send sort of delivery. And the more people that we can get involved in that, the higher the odds of getting this passed.
Briarcliff Roundtable, which is a group of senior citizens who are residents of Briarcliff, meets every other Saturday, and Sandy Galiff is part of the Zoom meeting. So we'll bring it up with her again and see if she will enlist some further support in finding funding as well.
I think she did in November or so. There was a story. We did another push. It was the 1-year anniversary of the press conference that we did in October. So we did another press release this October. And she did, subsequent to that, propose legislation, even though they weren't in session yet. So I think they actually do have something on the table in the assembly.
Thank you. I'll bring it up just to play safe. Okay, we have another question for you regarding the streetscape project in the downtown. The manner of speaking mentioned that the project was in the process of moving forward, and led people to understand that parking is going to be changed. Is the process going to result in parallel parking or anything like that? And if not, what is the other parking change that's mentioned in the manner of speaking relating to, what is it called?
Cross access.
Parking, yes. Mayor Vesio, you want to take that?
Sure, I'll go first. So downtown streetscape, we met with, when we were still meeting in person, thankfully we got that in. We had 2 or 3 workshops with about 40, 50 residents, talked about things we wanted, we liked about the downtown, things we didn't like. Bottom line is we have too much room in our downtown dedicated to vehicles and not enough dedicated to pedestrians. So we need to increase the pedestrian space in our downtown. Wider sidewalks. Some places we don't have sidewalks at all, like in front of Orfino's. It's very dangerous. We have a very convenient backup lane, but I don't know that we can afford to have that. So what the plan is right now, and it's going through the full design to determine the actual parking counts that will occur, is to have parallel parking on both sides of the street, east and west. So you'll add spaces while you'll lose them on the east side from going diagonal to parallel, you'll add some on the west side. Also, there's a couple curb cuts that are going to be eliminated down by Moonbeam and the dentist office, which will add more spaces. And then behind the Moonbeam, the dentist, and the patio, that we actually have easements for, and we negotiated 2 additional easements that we're in the process of finalizing. And we have the right to add parking. So behind the dentist, there's a big lawn area that's underutilized. We're going to make more parking there, and we're going to connect it to the Village Hall parking lot to try to improve traffic flow in the downtown. What we want to be sure of is that we don't box ourselves into a corner. So we were very specific that our curb to curb dimensions are kind of fixed. Once we put the curb in, that's what we have to work with. So we left enough room right now where we have parallel parking on east and west, a 2-foot buffer, I'll call it, for the door to swing open on east and west, and then a travel lane in each direction. If the residents hate it, we hate parallel parking, it's the worst thing ever, it ruined the downtown. We have enough room to go back to diagonal parking on the east side and one travel lane in each direction. So we were kind of sure, and that's just a matter of paint on asphalt, really, to make that change. It's a nominal change if it doesn't work out. But I think it will. And we just want to make sure we're not losing any parking, because with everybody being home from the pandemic and work from home probably continuing into the future, downtown parking has become more popular than train station parking for sure.
Thank you. Anybody want to add anything to that?
I would like to add just a bit. We did a lot of work polling residents about what they wanted to see downtown, what they liked, what they didn't like. Curiously, we had a vision to make the entire downtown more pedestrian friendly, expand sidewalks, as Stephen mentioned, allow for much more outdoor dining space, allow for much more outdoor seated space, and just make it a lot more family friendly, stroller friendly, pedestrian friendly area. If you talk to people, that all sounds great. What comes up very quickly is we don't want to lose any parking. We're not losing any parking at all. We're having different parking, and we're making use of the west side more than we're using it right now. The move to parallel parking, the number one criticism you hear all the time is, that's going to be a nightmare. Traffic's going to slow as cars are parking parallel. You're going to have to wait. It's going to hamper north-south traffic through the village. The response to that is, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to hamper north-south traffic as people come off 9A, because it's actually quicker to just rush through Briarcliff on Pleasantville Road to get from south to north. During rush hour, you see this all the time. If we can slow down traffic, you end up with not only a safer downtown, which we think is vital and will increase in the enjoyment of our downtown area, but you'll also have cars that no longer come off 9A because it's quicker to cut through Briarcliff. It won't be quicker to cut through Briarcliff. So that's a win-win. That's actually what we want. I think that Stephen is right that we were very careful to give ourselves a fallback plan, but I think this board is going to be a little more patient than the typical resident in waiting to implement that fallback plan. Nobody ever likes change. Everybody is going to argue this stinks. This is a terrible change. What were you guys thinking? We're less concerned about what people are going to say on day one, and we're looking forward to what will they say 3 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, when they start saying this village is awesome. Look at all the nice little sidewalk space. Look at all the outdoor dining opportunities. Look how I can just sit here and read a book outside in the sunshine in the summer. And you know, there will be change. The trees are going to have to be changed, for example. Those keep ripping up the sidewalk. No one's going to want to see that. But hopefully when we're done implementing all this, people will look back and be proud of even more proud of our village.
But Peter, I would be
See, already.
with one lane traffic. If one car gets stuck, you're going to create a backup in a village. I'm really concerned about one lane in each direction.
Right. With 2-lane traffic, when somebody gets hit by a car, you're backed up way worse. So safety is the absolute concern here. If it means slower traffic, I can live with that. And as a pedestrian, I probably would welcome that. If you try, even today, crossing the street at the clearly defined crosswalk, it's a nightmare. Cars don't stop. Cars rush by.
Of course they do.
Sit there and see near accidents every single day. So we're going to try to adjust that.
Ned, did you want to add something?
Yeah,
Add something. Yeah.
I also wanted to second something that Steve said. You know, we're also talking about adding new parking behind some of the existing buildings. So let's not forget that. We're going to have a net addition to parking there. And if you don't like crossing the street, you will be able to park on that same side of the street and have better access to the stores and things that already exist. And I wanted to commend Sabina, one of our fellow trustees. You know, she has some ideas, and the rec committee has some ideas about connecting our village into the bike trails of 9A and 100. And it's something that could tie into this village downtown. And I think it's something that is worth investigating. And I don't think enough people know about that. And one other thing with our streetscape, which frankly, we haven't mentioned at all yet, is one of the biggest projects, and this project hasn't been mentioned yet tonight, one of the biggest projects the village is undertaking, and that's the entranceway to Village Hall. We're finally making it, ADA accessible. This is something that Steve has been working on really hard. And not only are we, getting handicap access to Village Hall, we're also getting it to the police station, which doesn't have it. So, we're addressing some of the major issues. And that's just on the other side of this. This is still part of the same streetscape coming all the way down Pleasantville Road. So, we're sort of attacking it from both ends right now, bringing that building up to code, in terms of handicap accessibility, as well as repairing some of the surfaces there for the firehouse. So
Thank you for those answers.
forget about that.
Larissa, did you have something?
Yeah, I have a question about bikeways. How does the village benefit by connecting our bikeways to, let's say, Bronx bikeways? How do we gain, what's the benefit of doing that? Why do we want to do that?
Well, if the concept was, what a wonderful place to come and have lunch as you're out on the trails. Not to bring people necessarily onto the roads and doing that, but the way we were thinking about accessibility was directly from the trails. Right now you can gain access right behind the library and come that way without getting on the roads. So there's some other ideas that are being bandied about, but it's one of the, who thought of that before? And, we all thought it was a great idea and should be investigated.
It came from, how do we get more people to our downtown? Most downtowns have a train. We don't. Our train is all the way on the other side. Nobody's getting off the train and walking to downtown Briarcliff. We have a highway and we have a bike path. And we also have a bathroom on the bike path. So a lot of people do park there and use that as a stopping point. So the thought is, if we put a sign down by the community center that says this way to the downtown, shops, lunch, we can route people not on Pleasantville Road, but kind of behind by the Atria, School Road, and they can come up by Village Hall. And it's another way to bring people downtown into the stores and go to our businesses.
But people on bicycles are not going to do much shopping.
Larissa, we're running short on time, so
Okay,
maybe
fine.
we should hold these two offline. I have another question submitted by one of the participants. Can you provide us with an update on the police reform and reinvention project? And I think that's something that Justice Code can jump in on as well to see if it impacts anything in the courts. Whoever would like to take that.
I can answer it. I'm on the committee. We are moving along with that. It's really I'll be honest, it's a big ask from our governor right now in the middle of this pandemic. And he set a short time frame to do a lot of work. This came out, I guess, late summer, gave us a deadline of April 1st. And that means that the Board of Trustees also has to have a public hearing. So we really have to have it done by beginning of March. At the same time, we also have to submit a pandemic plan by April 1st as well. But the committee has been meeting bi-weekly via Zoom. We've got Pastor Tony Karlik leading it, doing a great job. Really good group of residents on this committee, very dedicated. And we've been going through the different sections of policies. For those who don't know, the village contracts with a company called Lexipol. They're a nationwide company, and they do code updates for us. They push them to us as things change out in the world. And then we can choose to either adopt those policies or not. But it's a way for us to keep up to date. So right now we have a survey out. I encourage everybody to fill out that survey on your opinion of our police department. We're having this Saturday from 2 to 4, a listening session for anybody that would like to comment. You can email the entire committee at pdreform@briarcliffmanor.org. And you can also submit an anonymous comment if you want to do that. There's Dropbox at the library that is specifically for this, or you can also drop it at the Village Hall Dropbox. So it's moving along. We have a lot of work to do, I'll be honest, and we'll get it done. It's just it's a big task. There's a lot of different parts of what our police do to consider. It's just, it's incredible, the different things from immigration policies to use of force, vehicle pursuits. It's incredible, and it's an ever-changing environment. So that's where we're at with the Police Reform Committee.
Thank you. Anybody else? want to add anything?
Aaron, since you mentioned my name, I was approached by the village manager a few weeks ago about a couple of people on the committee that suggested maybe the village judge should be on it. And my gut reaction, which proved to be true, was that I'm one of the 2 people who can't be on the committee in the village because of separation of powers issues. And actually about 2 weeks ago, an ethics opinion came down from the state. Some other judge had asked, hey, I've been asked to do this. And the ethics committee was like, absolutely not. So my gut feeling was correct. So sadly, I'm not on the committee.
Yeah, and just for the record, the Board of Trustees are not on this committee either. Steve is there as a liaison because in fact, this committee is generating recommendations for our consideration. And we want to, in a judicial role, we want to maintain independence. We want to let the committee work on their own, come up with recommendations on their own. We certainly don't want to be accused of swaying any of those decisions or the thinking process. So we really, at this point, the board has to sort of recuse ourselves from any involvement with that committee.
And Steve, you mentioned that if we have any comments to address, it's to address to PD Reform. And was that at briarcliffmanor.org?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. And that's this Saturday from 2 to 4, a listening session?
Yep.
Great. Thank you. We're going to start to bring the meeting to a close. We've asked the questions that have been submitted by our members, and we thank you all for your time and your answers. At this stage, I'm going to ask our treasurer, Zachary Giampa, to bring up an appeal for contributions to the caucus. Unmute yourself. Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Aaron. Yeah, I just want to implore everybody who's listening in that we are still in need of donations in order to keep this People's Caucus going. We run on a shoestring budget, and the donations, and especially this year, are not even meeting our minimal needs. So again, I implore everybody to make donations. We are not set up for Venmo or any sort of virtual exchange of money. You still have to send in the check. We have a PO box, and that is on our website. And if anybody knows anybody who would be willing to donate, again, we would appreciate any and all donations. Thank you.
Thank you, Zachary. Peter has offered to set us up with a Bitcoin account if we need it. So at this point, I'm going to ask the candidates if they'd like to make a closing statement. And again, this time we'll start in reverse order. Justice Code, would you like to make a closing statement?
No, just to thank everybody for their time and their service. And I think this is what makes Briarcliff great, the lack of partisan rancor and the willingness of people to step forward and do the work that has to be done. Other than that, if you want me to reread my thing from before, I'd be happy to do it. But I think thank you very much.
Thank you. Ned, do you have anything you'd like to say as a closing?
I'd just like to thank the village and my fellow trustees, and I look forward to 2 more years of working with a very successful team.
Thank you. And Peter, would you like to make a closing statement?
I would like to thank the executive committee of the caucus for sponsoring this event, for dealing with what has not been such an easy period to hold any kind of election or primary system. You did very well on Zoom, Aaron. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I would like to correct Howard. There's plenty of rancor. There is no political rancor. We fight like dogs. As soon as the camera goes off, our meetings it's a nightmare. I really do appreciate my entire board. I'm very proud of all the work we've done. I have personally very much enjoyed the time. It is light. It is focused. It is a lot of work, but it's a lot of fun at the same time. So as long as that continues to be the case, I'm happy to serve this village, and I'm happy to live here. And this is what makes Briarcliff so special. There is a lot of volunteerism that I think is unique to this community. That's just beautiful.
Thank
So,
you, Peter.
Thank you for everything.
Sorry to interrupt.
Nope, I'm done.
Mayor Vecchio, would you like to make a closing?
Sure. I would just like to thank everybody for their faith and confidence in having me as your mayor. As I said earlier, it really is an honor, and I'm happy to do it. I try to put my whole heart into it and really work hard for everybody, listen to everybody's concerns, try to address them as best I can. I look forward to working with not only my fellow trustees, but all the village staff and all the volunteers to continue to improve Briarcliff. And I just want everybody to know that we are here to speak for you and with your voice. If you have a concern that we need to lift it up to another agency, whether it's Con Edison, New York State DOT, we're happy to make those phone calls. It's amazing that when you call and you say, I'm Steve Vecchio from Briarcliff, they kind of don't listen to you. But then when you say, hey, I'm Steve Vecchio, the mayor of Briarcliff, all of a sudden their ears perk up and what you say means a little bit more. So I'm happy to speak up, and I'm honored to have that role. We welcome input and insight from all residents. I really feel, and we said it 2 years ago, we have a really talented group of residents in Briarcliff, and it's something that we've tapped into in the last couple of years. And I'm constantly impressed. Somebody comes to make a public comment on something, and then all of a sudden they start getting very involved in everything we're doing, and they're providing great input. And that's what has helped to make the code so much better, is that we're getting a lot of really good resident input. And one thing that I read on some letterhead that Karen Smith had showed me was something that Walter Law, our village founder, had thought about for Briarcliff. And I think it's very fitting. I really do. Only the best is good enough for Briarcliff. And I really like that. And I try to keep that in the back of my mind when we make some of these decisions, that how can we do this as best as possible? And I think it's a tribute to our village founder that we are preserving the image of Briarcliff that he wanted. And, we even moved a lantern that he owned down into the center of the village. We're going to put a plaque. I think it's very exciting, and I'm looking forward to what the next 2 years will bring. So thank you all.
Thank you, Mayor Vecchio. And on behalf of the Caucus Executive Committee, I want to thank everybody for their participation. I'm looking forward to the next couple of years with this board. We'll stand for re-election on March 16th. I once again would like to ask anybody who is willing to collect signatures on village nominating petitions. I will make sure they are delivered to you through the regular mail. Apparently, we are prohibited from using email copies of the signatures, so they need to be filed in originals. We need to obtain a minimum of 70 signatures, and we're going to go for 100 to play safe. So anybody willing to collect signatures, please notify us by email. We will make sure it is mailed to you as quickly as possible. And the deadline for us to file them with the village clerk is February 9th. So we have several more weeks since we do not have an election to worry about. And we'll get going with it as quickly as we can.
Aaron, can I make a suggestion?
Please.
When we're doing petitions and gathering signatures, I know I'll personally do it, but I think we should all, when we go for the signature, ask for a donation, even if it's $20 or $50. It might help fund the shortfall that we're seeing.
Thank you. That's a good idea. Rachel, you have something to add?
No, I can help do signatures as I always do, and we'll try to get donations as well.
Perfect. Appreciate that. Everybody has been very cooperative. If there's anybody who has any other business to bring before the caucus, now's your time.
Aaron, I'd just like to thank you and the executive committee. You guys do a great job.
Thank you.
Joe on that one.
Thank you, Rachel. We appreciate everybody's assistance and the good words that you passed along to us. I need a motion to adjourn the meeting. Anybody?
Motion,
Larissa,
motion to adjourn.
do we have
Second,
a second? Rachel,
Second.
thank you. Meeting is now officially adjourned. It'll take a couple of days for us to get the posting on our website of the recorded video of this meeting, as well as the nominating meeting. I've messed up trying to get it on, but I'll get it resolved this week and you'll have it by the weekend. Thank you very much, everybody, and have a great night. Stay healthy.
good night, be well.
Thank you, everyone. Be safe.
Good night.
Good
Good
night.
night.
Bye-bye.